Hello and welcome to an emergency Comics Pals live stream. Tyler's here,
Hi.
Hale's here,
What's up, hot dogs?
and we there's a lot. This has been a huge day for
Day.
news.
Not even like week so far. Day.
Yeah,
What's
and
what's that gonna happen tomorrow? I'm curious.
the world's gonna blow up,
Vince
and
McMahon no longer
so
head of. Oh wait.
it's just too much. We needed to get here and talk about what's going on with Ike Perlmutter. So Ike Perlmutter, the person who has steered the ship of what became Marvel Entertainment, was previously just Marvel Comics, Marvel, has been fired from his position at the head of Marvel Entertainment by Disney as a part of the 7,000 layoffs that Disney has been doing. Ike Perlmutter and two of his executives were let go. Ike Perlmutter was made aware of this on the phone, if you can believe
Oof.
that. Yeah.
I hope it was via text. Actually, no. This guy probably has a rotary. That's probably what it was.
It,
I,
it was a phone call from what I know.
I bet it was in front of everyone. And I kind of hope it was too.
Unbelievable. This is something that I've seen people say, like, I thought he was gone already. Uh, I thought everyone has this different take. I forgot about Ike Perlmutter altogether. I forgot about this guy. The fact that he was still there says a lot about the power that he has. And I think there are two pieces of this news story to talk about here. The first one is Ike Perlmutter, his firing, what that means in the immediate moment. But then the other part is the part that I feel like people are not talking about nearly as much, although I think it's more important, which is the aspect of Marvel Entertainment being no more and being sort of lumped into the wider Disney. That is a huge aspect
Yeah,
of
that
this
was like
story.
just kind of sprinkled at the end of that New York Times article,
Yeah.
Mm.
It shows how much people don't care about comics, how little it means
or how
that.
much people don't like Ike. You know,
Yeah, well, that
yeah.
absolutely as well. Yeah, that is absolutely. By the way, everybody that's watching us live, thank you guys. I'm glad that for an impromptu show, you guys have showed up. Bojangle Biscuits, first time chatter. Thank you, welcome. That's a great name. Appreciate the love. All right, so let's talk. So Ike Perlmutter,
Yeah.
since the '90s, he's been the man at the top of Marvel. He is the guy who had the idea. First of all, he owned Toy Wiz first. And Toy Wiz was bought out by Marvel. That put him on the chair of Marvel's board during the 90s. And Ike Perlmutter saw an opportunity to essentially uh, capitalize on the possibilities of Marvel characters as brands unto themselves outside of the comics. So, of course, we're talking about the toys, the television shows, which he was a big part of, and eventually the movies. He had the bright idea to let Marvel make their own movies and not keep farming their characters out to different studios. That's how we get to Iron Man and all that cool stuff. It was also his idea to sell Marvel to Disney. Betty regrets that now, although he did make $1 billion clean off that sale. There's a reason why Ike Perlmutter was fired. And yes, misogynist. We know he didn't like the women characters. We know that they tried to undersell or underproduce rather the toys for the women characters. He was notoriously against Captain Marvel being a film. He was also against Black Panther being a film. In the days of the Ike Perlmutter's emails were present where we learned that he had put out an email that showed all the failures of women superhero movies over the years. Catwoman, Supergirl. He linked to the numbers these movies did. Elektra. as a reason to not do anymore. Insane.
He's very, very risk averse. That is the nicest thing I could give him.
And notoriously
otherwise,
frugal.
he's a sexist and possibly racist person, you know? So
He would go to people's offices, grab their trash can, take the shredded paper, the ripped up paper, and say, use this as a sticky note. That's how frugal Ike Perlmutter was.
he had employees bring their own toilet paper.
Yes.
Yep. I think at one point I was reading, I think it was Kurt Busiek was tweeting about it. And also, like, I do like how like Twitter's been like a whole bunch of these old Marvel writers like just like talking shit now. I'm like, I love it. Busiek mentioned the toilet paper thing, but he also mentioned the Ike Perlmutter getting rid of coffee in the office, not paying for coffee, and then realizing that he doing that made productivity go down. So that was the only reason he brought coffee back.
I fucking walk.
Yeah.
It's unreal. It's unreal. But none of that's why he was fired. None of that. The reason that Ike Perlmutter was fired dates all the way back to 2015. You see, Ike Perlmutter like Kevin Feige much. And Ike Perlmutter was one of the people who oversaw the cabal that we've talked about many times on the show that basically, you know, had power over the films and television that Marvel produced. Ike Perlmutter didn't want Captain Marvel or Black Panther. Ike Perlmutter wanted Inhumans. Ike Perlmutter felt the Inhumans would be the next big thing because Ike Perlmutter hated Fox. So we can't have the X-Men. We'll do the Inhumans instead. And we saw how that went. Ike Perlmutter wanted Kevin Feige fired in 2015. And in his infinite wisdom, he thought Marvel would be fine. We don't need Kevin Feige. Bob Iger thought differently. And Bob Iger, in his infinite wisdom, not only did not fire Kevin Feige, he shifted all the important stuff that Ike Perlmutter had responsibility for, including the film and television stuff, under Kevin Feige. And made it so that Kevin Feige would report directly to Iger and Alan Horn, and no longer Ike Perlmutter. So they've always had a beef, Kevin Feige and Perlmutter. But when Iger made this decision, it created a beef between him and Perlmutter. And so when Iger was gone from Marvel or from Disney, when he left, Ike Perlmutter back to play.
Oh yeah.
Almost a coup. Maybe that's a little bit too big of a word, but it certainly was a proxy battle. So here's what happened. Nelson Peltz is an activist investigator, according to the New York Times, who wanted to join the Disney board and was pushing hard to get onto the Disney board. Perlmutter was going hard to get his buddy onto the Disney board. Annoying, nudging. He reached out 6 times to senior executives and Disney board members between August and November to get Peltz on the board.
This was last year.
Yeah. Sorry?
This was last year?
Yeah.
Okay.
When that didn't happen, Peltz started advocating against Disney and making the argument that if he was on the board, he would be able to cut costs, he would be able to get Disney's streaming service where it needs to be and clean up their succession strategy. And Perlmutter backed this play. All that to say that when Bob Iger got his job back, everybody shut up. Everybody stopped. And now we're witnessing Iger's revenge. That's my theory. You tried to play games with the Disney board. You harassed executives. You tried to manipulate things behind the scenes as someone who owns a ton of Disney shares. You're gone. and your project Marvel Entertainment is gone too. Bye. You lose.
I love so when I heard that there would be like 7,000 cuts across the board, my fears go to I don't know, editors at Marvel Comics, the cast members at Disney World, the little guy. Once I saw Perlmutter was one of them, I was like, hell yeah. There's a good way to cut a whole bunch of chunk of cash out of the way there. Executives cutting executives, I'm into it.
Especially a do-nothing executive. He had basically nothing still under his purview.
Yeah. It was I think
Dan Trudeau.
Chandasuk mentioned in the YouTube chat. You wouldn't see me working at that age because he's almost 80, and I'm like, he's not working. He's just getting money. This is all that is.
Yeah,
and
it's
harassing
money and
people.
Power and harassment. Yeah.
Yeah. Dan says in the Twitch chat that he put the comics under Feige.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing he oversaw anymore was licensing.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
If that.
And even I don't think he put the comics under Feige either. I think that was more of a play against his call. Was that
Kale
right?
meant that Iger put comics under
Fair.
Feige.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
everything went under Feige. All creative, and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, look, nobody's gonna cry tears for a guy that has made billions of dollars in his life. Losing a job at 80 years old that arguably he probably wasn't really doing anyways. And by all accounts, this dude sucked. Major butt.
Eloquent, Sean. Eloquent.
Thank you.
I think of like this guy was real big into he supported Trump's reelection campaign, if I was right about that. I don't know if it was election or reelection. Probably both.
The largest donor.
Yeah. Much to the chagrin of every Marvel employee. Like, they had people actively speaking out against it at the time.
100%. And now, today, I'm seeing reports. I don't remember. I've read so many articles on this. I don't remember exactly which one it was, but they talked about how Perlmutter's axe to grind with Fox because of the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, that led to those teams being cut out of the comics. So the theory that we've always had about why those characters were underrepresented in the books is now essentially, in my mind, confirmed.
It's always been one of those, like, not secrets,
Yeah. Absolutely. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it's even remarkable to me that this useful idiot got into the position of CEO at Marvel in the first place. He went from fighting in a war, being a war veteran, to selling toys, to running Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
What does he know about comics?
Fucking dream.
I mean, those
God.
once you're that high up on the scale there, I don't think you really need to know about stuff. You just need to have the money.
And even still, what you just said back in those days, like, yeah, they'll teach you anything, do whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
and he worked in magazines too. Am I right about that, or was it the other president of Marvel?
That I don't know. I didn't see anything about him working in magazines.
I mean, Matt mentioned in the chat that his son is head of Funko, and Funko just laid off their entire Mondo division.
Oh, wonderful!
Which
that's also fantastic. Yeah, I mean,
all around.
This is a win. Him specifically being gone is a win all around. Hopefully, something like this means that maybe, I mean, frankly, not that he has any power anymore, but I wonder if there were any holdovers from his power that we will see go away.
Yeah, I don't see this having any immediate effect. Like, from what I've read, he didn't really do anything anymore. I think his last big play was that Inhumans thing, which, granted, really good Inhumans books at the time. So, like, the creatives were doing the work that they were told to do, and they were doing it well. But once Feige took over, like, I don't think we've seen anything that has been, his decision since then.
Yeah, exactly. So good riddance, farewell, goodbye, fuck off.
I also recommend the Untold Story of Marvel Comics, Untold History of Marvel Comics. It's a really good book. I'm trying to get the author's name here, by Sean Howe. Marvel Comics: The Untold Story. They get a little bit into Ike Perlmutter in that. Really fantastic book. Perlmutter doesn't look good in that book either, but I would argue
When
that
does he
book
look good?
Nowhere really. I mean, it seems like a pretty universal, like nobody really cared for this dude.
Right.
Nobody, I have not seen anyone be like, well, he did this for me. Like
I
nothing.
mean, listen, you take away the company toilet paper, you're gonna get shit on.
That's a good one, Kel.
It's
That was good.
like at that point, it's prophetic.
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this. Marvel certainly, has come a long way. And if he really was the individual alongside, I would imagine, Avi Arad and others that spearheaded Marvel stepping into film with Iron Man and those films, I think that's wonderful. And we probably don't get to this point without that kind of decision making. I just don't think it takes a rocket scientist to make that choice.
yeah, even a broken clock is right twice a day.
Right. So, and if you really think about it, he bought Marvel, and then within that same decade they go bankrupt. So there you go. Not to blame him for that, but
I think
maybe
the only thing I can think of that was like a good decision, I forgot who mentioned it in Discord. Apologies to whoever mentioned it. But was that he wanted to make cheaper Toy Biz toys for Marvel. And then because of that, there was a lot more toys available. Like, it's very minimal,
Yeah, they had an exclusive contract to make toys for Marvel before they were purchased. So, wonderful. I'm sure I played with toys that came from his.
Oh, you did. Remember those clear ones with the comic book in the back?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
That was that.
yeah,
That was super cool. I loved that.
yeah. Those were great. Damn.
But that's the good part of this story, because I really think this is a tale of two sides as it relates to this story, because no one will cry for the loss of Ike Perlmutter, but I think potentially the collateral damage of this, and maybe just the business realities, are that everything that Marvel Entertainment was, which, while it wasn't overseen by Perlmutter, does include the comics division and the toy division, is now essentially absorbed into Disney. Not that Marvel Entertainment wasn't a Disney entity before. Of course it was. It just had autonomy within the Disney ecosystem. And now that is no longer the case. Dan Buckley will still report directly to Kevin Feige, as he has. Dan Buckley is the publisher, or rather president, of Marvel Entertainment. But other than that, as far as we know, the structure of Marvel Entertainment no longer exists. And we haven't seen the names outside of the executives, the 3 executives that were fired, of anyone who might be fired from Marvel Entertainment's end. But guess what? There are going to be redundancies.
Yeah.
That's always.
We haven't even hit Friday yet, which is Friday is the day people get fired,
Yeah.
If you get called into the office at 3 p.m. on a Friday, oh boy, that's not good.
Bury the bad news.
Yeah.
That's how they do it. So there is obviously a lot of opinions going around on this subject. Everybody's got their take. There are people that are saying this is great because now it means that Disney's going to take a look at the publishing end and say, wait, what's going on here? Why is this run this way? Let's shake things up. There are a lot of people saying that. I'm not going to say that that's not possible, but I am going to say that I believe that's highly, highly unlikely. I don't think that Marvel's bottom line is going to look at it and go, wow, yeah, we really need to put our time, money, and effort into this end. I believe I saw that their annual take-in is 40 to 60 million. Yeah, here it is. This is coming from Deadline. Perlmutter's oversight included comic book publishing, which reportedly earned 50 to 60 million annually. That is what the comics end is making. In Disney's world, that's a drop in the bucket.
In Ike Perlmutter's world, that was a drop in the bucket.
Indeed. So do they care enough to keep this thing going? I don't think they'll like, I feel like they're probably not going to stop making comics. But
yeah, that's a drop in the bucket, but it's also not enough to take off the table.
Right. Hopefully.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the divisions of Disney currently as it stands because they just restructured this once Iger came back. So you have corporate, obviously ESPN's its own division, Walt Disney Studios, Disney Media and Entertainment, and then Disney Parks Experiences and Products. My guess is this will fall under either Disney Parks Experiences and Products, or it'll fall under Disney Media and Entertainment eventually.
Yeah.
Then you have separate heads from there. Like, I know a lot about the park side of things because I'm a Disney adult. So I think I'm not as gloomy about it, if I'm being honest. I'm shocked though, simultaneously. We've been talking about this happening with WB and in DC for months now, right?
Yeah. This is what everybody thought would happen with DC.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Marvel's like, psych, it's us doing it first. Honestly, I think this might be the reasoning that DC uses to do it eventually. Once they see what happens here. But because I think Disney is a stronger company altogether, I'm less worried about it. Yeah. I mean, in some cases, Disney is stronger than some governments, like that whole, they just outsmarted DeSantis today. And that whole, Disney Parks, Reedy Creek District thing makes DeSantis look like an idiot. So, yeah.
I don't want to be negative on here.
No, sure.
I want to, not be doom and gloom about this, but let's speak reality right now.
Sure.
The movies are on a trajectory where they have their own canon. And they don't need comics to tell stories anymore. There are enough stories in the comics to extrapolate and, do whatever you want to do, take them for what they are, clean the bones off, and dump the carcass to make their movies in perpetuity, as long as it's going to be successful. They don't need comics to continue to publish for that. If comics vanished today, it wouldn't mean anything to Disney. Not anything. 60 million?
That's the number, yes. But there is public perception that Disney very much cares about.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. But public perception of who? The wider world doesn't care about comics. We care. The comics industry cares. It would destroy the comics industry, but would Disney really see a significant amount of negative blowback?
I think if Disney starts seeing headlines of Disney, ends Marvel Comics, I think that's a huge ass headline that would make national news and would not look good. And especially since Iger's, I think under Iger, we don't see that. Because Iger's whole thing right now is public perception and fixing things that Chapek screwed up. That's the reason he's there. Once he's gone, though, is when I think changes can happen, and then we'll see what happens with Marvel. But I think it's another negative headline, and they're in the business right now of preventing negative headlines.
Right now, they're in the business of clearing $5.5 billion of debt.
Sure, half of that just got gone with Perlmutter, I guess.
And that's the key. That's the key. If it comes to reaching this number goal, they'll do it. I don't hold anything past the corporation.
Mm. Mm.
I just don't. Disney runs Marvel. I hate to say this because I disagree fundamentally with the idea that this would be a good thing. But they could outsource the production of books.
They could. Yep. IDW is probably like, ooh, you know?
Yeah. Like it's not impossible.
Another thing Busiek mentioned, and Kurt Busiek, one of my favorite Twitter follows, honestly. He's one of the few reasons I'm still on that site.
Yep.
He mentioned that there is a potential inverse that could be good here because Ike Perlmutter was very risk averse. He would not want to do anything, that he saw as potentially risky. Because it doesn't make much money, Marvel. They could do risks, because they're not risking money really at that point. And one of the things he mentions is maybe using that and maybe making it more integrated with Disney. What if Disney started putting out, I don't know, Disney princess books? That's a whole division that is huge for them. That could be untapped because it really is untapped right now. If they put out a whole bunch of, I don't know, Moana books, they put out Haunted Mansion books to tie into the movie. I think this could be a good IP generator as well. Publishing in terms of physical print, I don't know, but they did just gut their digital experiences division as well. So I don't think we're going to go whole hog into a digital comic format. But there's potential for the opposite to happen here too. It's because it's not making so much money, we can do things with it. You know what I mean? Like they don't want to mess with the parks because parks generate a significant amount of money. So being risky there, not as easy.
That's true. That is true. I just have a hard time believing that a suit who's never read a comic in their life is going to look at the bottom line of Marvel Entertainment on the publishing end and go, wow, yeah, now when we're trying to save $5 billion, this is the time to take a risk on comic books.
Yeah. And frankly, the sound of Disney taking a risk doesn't ring true to me.
Well, my thing is, it isn't even a risk because it's so small in comparison to things. I think if somebody can spin it as this is our IP farm, everyone loves IP. A suit will love the word IP. They love that sound.
If Disney wouldn't let a little dead boy use Spider-Man on his gravestone, like they're not gonna,
That dead boy did not have the rights to Peter Parker, okay?
Well, but that's what I'm talking about. Like they're so litigious and, they care about their image so much. They're not gonna just let that, they're not just gonna let risks fall down where wherever they happen or they need something. Like they care too much about walking down the middle.
Yeah.
Anything's possible. I just am very concerned for the future. And I want to say something to people that think, well, you know what? Marvel publishes bad comics anyways. Their comics are so woke anyway. They'll fire and get rid of the editors and the behind the scenes people who keep making these bad comics. Fire Jordan D. White, the editor of the X-Men.
No, he's got a great mustache.
All this bullshit. Of course he does. He's a great guy. Let me tell you something. If you think that they're going to fire all the people who know how to make comics, whether you like the comics or not, the people that know how to make comic books, and then what? Go and find someone else? You're wrong. Yeah. It will go from there are X-Men comics you don't like to there being none.
Yeah.
Yep. And that'll be that.
Yeah.
So I'm imploring people to stop cheering the demise of comics. If we lose Marvel, we lose the direct market. If we lose the direct market, comics go underground.
honestly,
you won't be able to keep comic book stores open anymore. That's done.
if Marvel stops publishing comics, that is the excuse that Warner Brothers needs to not do it for DC, and then there's no comics. I hope you guys like Demon Slayer.
It wouldn't even matter if Marvel stops publishing comics. That's the end of the direct market.
Yeah,
DC can do whatever they feel like doing. It doesn't matter.
I hope it's not leaning to a DC Universe app because that app ain't good, you know. So.
This is like I don't. Again, my hope is that this leads to nothing, and that's entirely possible.
We won't know for 6 months.
Sure, it's going to be a while.
Yeah, at minimum. I think the first thing we'll see is probably a reduction in the amount of books a month.
I think the first thing we'll see is cuts.
Yeah,
if there are to be cuts,
we'll like editors and stuff like that.
We'll see people go. Yeah,
I think we see that this week, if anything. Yeah, because this is the week that they are doing the layoffs. Yeah. I don't think they want to really drip feed the layoffs. I think they just want to kind of, rip the Band-Aid off here. The way that Iger's been talking about it and pretty much warning people about it. But yeah.
Right. Look, we love comics on this podcast. We want comics to thrive. These kinds of stories scare the shit out of me. Oh, I'm not going to lie. I'm always hopeful, but it's tough to get on here and just talk about the positives when it looks so grim. There are a lot of good people that work in comics.
Yeah.
A lot of good people. And I want to see those stories. I just do. I don't want this industry to go away.
Without Marvel and DC, we're going to have to just review Spawn book. I can't do this, guys. I guarantee you, if Marvel and DC go away, Spawn will still exist. Spawn's gonna be like the cockroach in the radioactive nuclear warfare of the comics collapse. But yeah,
Hod will fund Spawn himself.
Oh, 1,000,000%.
100%. Yeah. The fans will fund it. Kickstarter already is a source for.
I'll be a huge Spawn fan at that point.
Yeah.
Yep.
What else are you gonna read? It's either that or Dogman.
Fucking War and Peace.
Whoa! Don't hate on Dave Pilkey. All right.
There was no hate involved. I'm saying those will be the options.
Fair.
Take your pick. However you feel about that. There's again, the most likely outcome here to me is that nothing happens.
Yeah.
When we're talking about a year and a half, I don't feel like we'll see anything huge. But over time, I could see this being bad. This could be a huge evaluation period. We need to know who is going to be appointed into some of those new roles that will pop up inevitably and who's going to be released. Those are the keys. And if we start to see an exodus of top-tier creators from Marvel, then you know what happened. You know that the contracts are cut, the page rates went down again, and it will be scabs and people trying to make their bones as the creative team on Spider-Man. And that's where we'll be.
What do you think of the possibility of this becoming a more in-house thing? Where everything's kind of taken in-house. There's instead of page rates, it's all house style sort of thing.
Like paying actual living wages?
Whoa. Let's not go crazy.
Well, listen.
What do you mean by so in-house meaning they're paid what, hourly? They get a salary? What do you mean?
Salaried, yeah, instead of page rates, yeah. I know, I believe I'm trying to think of another industry that does this. I think manga actually. There are manga houses that all work on books and stuff like that. Brain not working right now, but it's very big unknown everywhere.
Yeah, that would be great. I guess. Although I don't see them shelling out that kind of money. And if they're not shelling out the right kind of money, then it probably doesn't make sense to be Marvel exclusive or DC exclusive, which we've seen exclusivity become a less normal, common thing over the last 10 years.
The other point too, I'm still seeing headlines about Ant-Man having, essentially bombing what happens if this, Marvel bubble is bursting, and then the breadwinner of the MCU is no longer winning bread? Where does that leave Marvel Comics at that point too? Like before, there was a clear division in a way. Now they seem a little more closely tied. If the money generator is no longer generating as much money, then what does the little guy part of it have? Why do we even need to invest in that anymore?
I think that's a much longer term
Sure.
question.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
I feel like I don't know. I just don't overreact to the sales numbers of Marvel movies because we know that they've been in a weird spot. But the movies that need to do well and the movies that are generally well received have done well. So if Ant-Man sucked, according to the public, then it did less. I don't know. I don't read much into that. But I would like to give, as we wind down, the listeners their opportunity to share their piece of this, because I do want to know what you guys are thinking and how you're feeling about this. So I'd love to turn to the comments for a few minutes so we can get the take of the listeners.
Dan making me not want to turn to the comments by saying AI generated art from this point forward.
Oh my God.
Marco's not here, comics. Dan. Yeah.
That's horrifying.
He says about Tyler's wage thing. That's actually how comics worked in the golden age. The publishers outsourced the work to houses, and things weren't done under the roof of National, Timely, etc. People like Bob Kane, Joe Simon, Will Eisner, I think, had his own house. They established houses that were subcontracted to create the content.
I have no familiarity with that, but it sounds to me like the kind of thing that would see less quality coming out of the books. If they're not going to be willing to pay the top tier creators what they need to make to want to do that kind of thing, then the work falls to the next group. And then how good are they? Do we want that?
I mean, if we're talking pay, there was a good thing to happen with Disney. The cast members in Florida, they have a union there. They pretty much just got their contracts affirmed almost unanimously, like $18 an hour. So like, there's precedent for them paying people a decent wage now. But again, I'm way too optimistic.
Desperate to talk about Disney parks. That's
man, I've been craving to go. I've been seeing that Tron ride down there.
Fucking anything to defend Disney. Oh no, I swear, Disney, they'll be a good guy. I swear, they'll do the right thing.
I'm just trying to get that media pass,
The goddess Vaith says, I think everyone knows that comics has been long due for a market correction for a long time. If they could drop their monthly titles from 80 a month to 40 and focus on putting out good stories, I feel like we'd start a slow bounce back until we see that I feel like comics are just going to continue to fall away slowly. It's too many titles for people at the price point they're at currently. I think every single word of that is true, except for the part where why would Marvel limit their books? Marvel's publishing 80 titles a month for a reason. Marvel has the dominant corner of the market. Marvel wants more of their books on the shelf than other publishers. Marvel wants to take up as much publishing space as possible. And if, take your pick, book doesn't do that great, but Spider-Man is doing gangbusters. Spider-Man is rising all boats, right? And Marvel says, well, if the Moon Girl book do so great, all right, we'll cancel it and we'll relaunch it and try again. That number one's going to sell. And guess what? People in trade seem to really like Moon Girl, so why not?
The other thing, and if they start limiting their books, we talked about this last week on the show, price point. What happens then? If they limit their books and they increase price, they're pretty much saying, hey, if you want to get Marvel Comics, you only have a certain amount to actually do it for. And now these books cost $6, It sounds like a hostage situation in a way, but
it's capitalism.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not as simple as saying we're gonna have less of our beer brand on the shelves, right? Every comic is different. Every comic is individual. Every comic has a different audience. So it's not as if you can cut the offerings in half but retain the audience. Because if you don't publish Moon Girl, for example, then whatever amount of people were buying Moon Girl, maybe they're not taking that $5 or $4 and putting it somewhere else. Maybe they're keeping it in their pocket.
Yeah.
That's the gamble. And then you would have to raise prices.
Vaith says true. However, the majority of those titles make so little money, it's likely being registered in the thousands. So it also devalues that IP when you're so focused on making less good stories just to keep up with the amount of lines you need to maintain.
I have a hard time with the idea that it devalues the IP. And they're setting out to try to make good stories, and the people that are buying it think it's good. I think that's Marvel's strategy. Whether it's the right one or not, they're making more money than any other comic book publisher in the West that publishes direct market comics, floppy comics. You can only argue but so much with success. I don't think Marvel's strategy is great for the industry as a whole, but it's great for their bottom line, which is exactly the thing we see everybody focusing
on. One positive I was sort of thinking of is with the actual like Disney publishing arm, maybe we do see that full shift to, Penguin or whatever as distribution.
Right. Like globally.
Yeah. Like we get comics everywhere they need to be now instead of working with Diamond or whatever the fuck,
So
I wish.
C2E2 is this weekend, and I was just looking up the panels, and CB Cebulski, editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics, has 2 panels this weekend. He has a Spider-Man one, and then Breaking into Comics. Weeby Cebulski, Kira Ishida.
The Eastmaster.
So I do not envy him. I bet you they don't do a Q&A. Thank you, Catherine, for the Twitch sub. Appreciate that. Hi. Hello.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, and he has to answer to it. Someone has to say something. And I hope that the reason they put this out now and the reason why this is happening now, although, again, I do not believe that Disney gives a shit about what happens at C2E2 or anything of that nature. But my hope is that now this empowers CB Cebulski to get out there and make a statement that will assuage people like us, people that are listening to this or people who are concerned, and say, hey, listen, for us, this really doesn't change anything. Maybe it even loosens the reins a little bit. I would love to hear that. If it's true.
Well, we'll see when's this Breaking in the Comics. This is Friday. So.
Well, he probably won't say anything at the Breaking into Comics panel, but.
Oh, I'm sure other people have other questions, like how he broke into comics. Put on a kimono.
Matt says, I would pay more for a McNeven comic than I would a Junior comic. I'll pay for prestige titles from top artists. I've paid $25 for a single issue. If it's worth it, I will pay. I think that there are quite a few people who read comics that feel that way. I certainly do. My problem is that amount is not high. And it goes back to what Dan Didio said in the interview that I over and over again, which is that, yeah, you could do that. And there might be, 1,000 Matt Murphys that are wanting to spend $25 on a single issue of Batman. But what about the rest of the people who are willing to spend $5 or $4 and no more, that are now alienated and not buying anything? What's the cap on that? When does that stop?
Tales of the world.
Sean's of the world, dude. I'm done.
Unless you got like a scratch and sniff issue, I'm not getting a $25 comic.
I just bought the Geiger trade today. Okay, it costs $10. I also bought Detective Comics number whatever today. It costs $5. Do the math. 1 issue versus 6.
And I would argue Geiger prestige creative team.
Absolutely. Not a run of the, not that I'm not trying to disparage Rom V. Forget I said detective. Any book. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
$4, $5, $6. The creative team's probably not as good as the one on Geiger. It's a joke. It's a joke. $10 versus 6, 5. It's ridiculous.
Uncharted waters, for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, here's the good thing about all this. We have content for the show. Thanks, Disney.
Well, that's my favorite thing in the world. But in all seriousness, this did put a damper on my day to some degree. Other things did too. We'll talk about that another time. But the idea that Marvel could be in jeopardy, that now both DC and Marvel sort of feel like they're on the precipice of things going left, that puts a bad feeling in my gut.
Which sucks because we should be cheering on the dissolution, the Thanos snap of Ike Perlmutter. I can't even say his name. Ike Perlmutter.
It's already just vanishing out of your lips.
Dan Trudeau says $6 monthly for Comixology Unlimited versus that much for 1 issue of a comic.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is Amazon owns Comixology Unlimited, and they're just as bad as Disney.
But imagine a company, or rather, imagine a business or a medium operating like this in any other place. What's the cost of Resident Evil 4 remake? Anywhere you go.
70?
60, I think.
Oh, no, everything's 70 now.
Well, whatever it was, I paid it. I needed that game. What's the price? The price is the price.
Sure.
It doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't matter how you try to get it unless you steal it. The price is the price.
Yeah, it's free 99 at Target self-checkout.
And it's consistent. It's not like some Sony games are or some Capcom games that are AAA titles. You can buy Resident Evil 4 for $70, or you can buy the same type of new game for less or more. It's consistent. Games have consistent messaging across all companies that make games. You have your low tier games that have low tier price, and you have your AAAs. We understand it. I don't know why comics are like this. I'm sorry for the rant.
It was more of a soapbox.
Yes, thank you. Soapbox.
Branding.
You're
absolutely
right. So, yeah, we got it out of our system. We won't be talking about this on Saturday.
We might.
Well, I guess it might come up again.
We need a Marco minute. Yeah.
No, we don't. we really, really don't. Roboter says, with bad quality books for said person, it's better to cut bait with the price points, as it is voting with wallet. Is something most will be doing more and more. Yeah, absolutely. Every dollar and cent more that any item costs, you will lose people along the way. And the average comics fan is going to have a difficult time justifying price increases.
Yeah, Dan says on Twitch, comics are like this because you can't fix comics in a meaningful way without hurting people invested in the business.
Yeah. It's a business built on a house of cards. On a house of floppies.
Which, not stable.
No.
Especially the quality nowadays, yeah.
Jesus Christ. Try building a house on the DC books.
Those books leave fingerprints. It's wild to me.
Legatus Vaith makes a good counterpoint. If I vote with my wallet enough, eventually all comics lose, though. That's true, too.
If they're putting out shit, like, they gotta, they gotta do better. Like,
it feels more and more like an impossible problem.
Yeah.
But I want to end on this note. At the end of the day, Perlmutters aside, giant corporation CEOs aside, we're here because we love comics. And the only responsibility that a comic book reader has is to enjoy it. And if you're so inclined, spread the gospel. Buy, support, and read what you love. Try to avoid piracy if you can. It's kind of shit. Read comics. Support creators.
Yeah.
That's it.
that's it.
I'm not saying buy what you don't like. I'm saying put your money where you do. That's all.
Yeah.
With that, we're going to close out this live. Thank you guys so much for watching. Tune in Saturday to hear our thoughts on the rest of the major news that came out this week. Jonathan Majors included, new Jonathan Hickman and Valerio Schiti book fully announced. We know what it is.
And that dude just can't catch a break. He announces something, he's doing something awesome, and Marvel implodes.
Yeah, I'm sure Jonathan Hickman is thinking hard about just moving all his ideas to Substack. By the way, our show will be at the normal time this week. We will be doing the show at 10 a.m., 10:15 a.m. Eastern. We will be explaining all the reasons why, but that is the case. Thank you guys for joining us for this special live stream. Really means a lot that you did. We appreciate it so much. We will see you guys Thursday for Pals Pulls at 6 p.m. Eastern. If you want to come hang out with us, we are going to be reviewing The Ambassadors #1, a new Malar World joint. We will also be talking about Doom Patrol #1, Harley Quinn #28, and Action Comics #1053. Thank you so much for watching. Until then, we are the Comics Pals signing off. Take care, guys.
See you tomorrow.